all this stuff. You're like, oh wow, like fix the money, and you
Mhm.
essentially fix the world. But that's kind of unfixable because who's going to fix the money? And so
Mhm.
Satoshi stood up and was like, I got this. Tangent, but like I kind of see Bitcoin as the first true AI, right?
Mhm.
It's this like machine, like intelligent system that runs on its own. And it's been running on its own for 16 years, and it's never
Mhm.
down, and there's no CEO. I mean, and it's solving for the most important thing, which is money. So how Bitcoin is not AI? mean,
All right. What's something Bitcoin has given you that you did not expect?
children. No, that's kind of true. So I never
Okay.
wanted to have kids because I thought the world was a dark place, and it was actually, I'm not kidding, discovering Bitcoin that like made me go, oh my god, like this future is going to be beautiful.
So
And so yeah,
Bitcoin,
Bitcoin gave me kids.
It's starting to look like this Bitcoin thing is here to stay.
welcome to Why Bitcoin Wins, sponsored by Beaver Bitcoin, your best non-custodial Bitcoin exchange in Canada. I'm your host, Shravan Jhangiani, and today my guest is Sunny Ray, a long-time Bitcoin operator with an extremely impressive resume. Co-founder of UnoCoin, India's early Bitcoin platform. He also recently served as president of Matador Technologies, which is a Canadian MicroStrategy style Bitcoin public company. He runs his own family office and venture studio and is one of the main organizers of the Bitcoin meetups in Toronto. In fact, we were both at a Bitcoin meetup last night, which was also sponsored by Beaver. Sunny, welcome to the show.
Hey Shravan, yeah, thanks for coming out yesterday. Really appreciate it, and appreciate the Beaver team supporting the Bitcoin movement.
100%. So, Sunny, what, we're going to use this time for is to, get to know you. Uh, and there's no better place to get to know you than your origin story. I mentioned in my intro, you co-founded UnoCoin back in 2012. That's obviously very early. What was the price of one Bitcoin when you started?
When I got into Bitcoin, it was probably sub $10. When I started buying Bitcoin, around I think my first purchase was at 14. And for all the bad guys listening out there, I do not have those Bitcoin anymore.
Lost it in a
Yeah,
boating accident.
tragic
Right.
boating accident. But
Very
it's
sad.
yeah, $14 is when I started, and then I think when by the time we had launched UnoCoin a year later, the price had done its first like crazy move, like
Hmm.
to, I think it was like almost 1,000 or something, and then it came
Right.
down, and it died soon thereafter. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's what a ride, man. What a ride for sure.
Yeah. How many times has Bitcoin died?
Oh, there's like an obituary website out there, right, with hundreds of reporters and people calling for Bitcoin's death or just claiming that it died, and it's like that's why the what is it, the honey badger, right? That's
Hmm.
like the symbol or the animal. It's like spirit animal. And I don't know if you've ever seen those like national, those nature movies where they talk about honey badgers, but they are
Right.
crazy. Like they will mess you up. And Bitcoin is kind of the same, it's like don't mess with it type of thing.
100%. So 2012 is obviously very early, and like you said, $14 per Bitcoin. I
Hmm.
mean, that's That's as early as it gets. So, what do you feel like you understood about Bitcoin before most people did to build that early conviction? And what do you feel like you got wrong?
What did I get? I talk about my relationship with money, uh, like I almost I equate it to having asthma
Mm,
because money and oxygen to me are similar in the sense that when you have an abundance of it, you're just like, you don't think about it, you're good. But when you're like running out of it, like oxygen, for example,
mhm,
it's kind of like all you can think about. And so my first like real, I would say, encounter with money was when I moved away from home and became a university student and was studying, electrical engineering here at University of Toronto, and just having to face the realities of life, like of buying, and groceries, and
mhm,
eventually graduating, having like massive student loans, and I remember my first job was like 38,000 a year or something, right? You take the taxes away from that, you pay your student loans, you pay for your rent, pay for your car, and
not much left.
there's always more month than money, for I think a lot of people, that same feeling. And
Right.
that was what got me to start asking the question around like, what is money? Like,
Hmm.
not just like, how do you manage it and how do you make it, but like, what is it at its fundamental kind of core? And yeah, and so I ended up actually in my evenings and weekends, like while doing engineering work, I got all my licenses, like financial advisor licenses and life insurance, we would move mortgages and just became like an independent broker, and really in hope of trying to understand the question of like, what is money? And the
Hmm.
irony of that journey was that I felt like I understood money less at the end of that 3 years or whatever it was that I spent as a financial advisor. I still
Hmm.
couldn't, I didn't have anyone around me that could, you could ask like, well, what is money or what is inflation? And they could just give you a straight answer. Like people
Hmm.
would just say things like, money is life, or money is everything, or
Right.
weird things, or money is the root of all evil. And
Hmm.
they would never give you like a real answer. And so, yeah, so that left a distaste in my mouth, and I just kind of left that space and,
Hmm.
dedicated, I would say, almost 8 years into robotics. I worked for a robotics company here in Canada, and then moved out to India on behalf of that company in
Right.
2012. And around then was when I discovered Bitcoin. And that was the
Hmm.
first time where I felt like started to understand money.
Hmm.
I felt like Bitcoiners do a great job of kind of starting from first principles and
Hmm.
explaining, what's the history of money and where was it and where is it going. And yeah, and so to me, when I read the Bitcoin white paper and started watching all these YouTube videos, I was like, oh, like Bitcoin is the future of money. And
Hmm.
so, and having asked that question for years prior, I think kind of helped set the bed, the bed for it. I think I attribute it also to the fact that I studied electrical engineering. I think
Hmm.
I was less afraid of, numbers and formulas and white
Right.
papers and logic and things like that. And so, although I'm not going to lie, like even today, I don't think I understand even like 0.1% of Bitcoin. Like
Right.
it's so much. There's like, you need to probably dedicate, 100
Yeah.
lifetimes to fully understand the scope of it. But
Yeah, I've
yeah,
been humbled by people in conferences where, you think you know a lot because you read and watch YouTube videos, but when you go to these conferences, you talk to some Bitcoiners and you're like, okay, you you know way more than I do. Like it's not even close.
yeah, and they may just know way more down a certain rabbit hole, right? Like
Right.
Bitcoin, and can it be used on Mars or something, or some like weird,
Right.
off the. But there is so much like depth, and
Hmm.
it's just so interesting. Yeah, like the more I learn about Bitcoin, the more excited I get, and yeah, and then I mean, just to kind of sum it up, I'd also like got kind of caught up with the Occupy Wall Street movement. I remember Dr. Ron Paul and his kind of preaching about gold and sound money. That was
Mm-hmm.
another inflection point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and all these things kind of, again, asking questions like gold and like why has gold withstood the test of time, and
Yep.
all these questions. I think eventually, yeah, just when I discovered Bitcoin, when you go from first principles and you're like, oh, it's limited and it's
Mm-hmm.
scarce and it's all the properties that it has.
Right.
It's censorship resistant and it's open source, and on top of
Right.
it it's just like beautiful, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. And so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've been kind of obsessed with the idea now for almost 13 years.
That's amazing, and that's so early that you were, so convinced. Obviously, they say that you have to put 100 hours into studying Bitcoin. From everything that you just said, it sounds like you put in a little more than 100 hours. Like,
Yeah.
how is the conviction built? Like, so you start in 2012. You've done all of these different things that you just described, and what is the timeline where you're like sound money, and you're like, because that's very different from initially being curious and interested to today where you're like, Bitcoin is sound money. I'm using it as a savings vehicle. How do you get from 0 to 100 for a absolute new Bitcoiner?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of Bitcoiners have this kind of similar story, right? Where when they first discover Bitcoin, they go into this like monk like mode where they can't
Hmm.
sleep or eat or talk or socialize, and they get stuck in a room for like 6 months. I had a similar type of thing happen, right? Where I was also fortunate that one of my like early friends, because of meetups again, right? I
Hmm.
attribute so much credit to just doing meetups.
Hmm.
But I had a buddy who was a PhD in cryptography. So, for us, Saturday nights were all about just the two of us hanging out, drinking and whiteboard. And he'd be like going into SHA 256 and explaining like kind of the guts of Bitcoin and how it all works. So,
Hmm.
I was fortunate in that sense. But I quite quickly, I'd say early, like, after that monk period,
Hmm.
knew that this was something that I was going to pounce on, because less so about the opportunity and being so sure that, eventually the world would see it, but more just pattern recognition and having missed, or felt like I had missed so many opportunities, i.e. the computer, right? The internet, the cell phone, like having seen all these like kind of come and then go and then blow up in front of my face time after time, having seen friends that, when I'm doing engineering school, they're like, hey, Sonny, drop out of school and come to our basement and we'll build this startup. And I'm like, yeah, right, buddy. And then a year later, they're like multimillionaires. Like, what? So having seen these patterns over and over again, I was like, finally, when I came across Bitcoin, and I'd also done the financial advising thing where
Hmm.
I knew that there was this deep, deep like confusion around money, and not just budgeting it, but what is it? And I just couldn't help but feel that like the fact that money is one half of every transaction, that this could be the biggest opportunity I've ever come across. And I'd say until maybe around this new AI renaissance, I really thought that might have been like the most crazy thing I've ever come across. I'd say AI is getting up there. But in some ways, I don't want to take off on a tangent, but like I kind of see Bitcoin as the first true AI, right?
Hmm.
It's this like machine, like intelligent system that runs on its own. And it's been running on its own for 16 years, and it's never
Hmm.
down, and there's no CEO. I mean, and it's solving for the most important thing, which is money. So how Bitcoin is not AI, I mean, maybe that's for another convo, but I'm just obsessed, dude. I love the idea of Bitcoin, and for the longest time, when you do understand what inflation is, and like and how that's tied to like wars and so all this stuff, you're like, oh wow, like fix the money and you
Hmm.
essentially fix the world. but that's kind of unfixable because who's going to fix the money? And so
Mhm.
Satoshi stood up and was like, I got this. And so, yeah, man. So I think, I don't know, I just kind of put it together and was like, all right, I think this is like literally the biggest thing ever.
Mhm.
And my way of kind of de-risking really everything is meetups. Like I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I know Bitcoin's big. I know, and at the time, I kind of saw what was happening in Toronto. There was a lot of meetups, like Bitcoin meetups, happening at the time. And really, I was living in Bangalore and I felt like I was missing out. That was
Mhm.
what got me to start doing meetups, right? And it was just like, man, I wish I could just hang out with Bitcoiners. I don't want to talk about cricket. I don't want to talk about like soccer
Right.
or movies. Like I want to talk about Bitcoin. I want to be around like people that are as passionate. And
Mhm.
so my bright idea was, hey, I'll just start my own meetups in Toronto.
Mhm.
I mean, in Bangalore. And that's what I started doing. And
Right.
that was what eventually led to everything, really, right? Like eventually starting UnoCoin, building that conviction, as you were alluding to earlier, finding partners to do Bitcoin. We ran a mining operation. We did physical Bitcoins. We did Bitcoin conferences. Like, but our whole approach was like, we know we want to do something in Bitcoin. We just don't know what it is that we want to do.
Mhm.
And so we'll just try everything and we'll let the market tell us, what they like versus what they don't.
Mhm.
And we tried, like I said, Bitcoin mining, we tried this, we tried conferences, but there was one constant, which is that people would show up at our meetups and be like, dude, where do I buy Bitcoin? And we would
Mhm.
never have like a proper place where we could send them. And,
Mhm.
and, doing cash deals at the Leela Palace didn't seem like the most secure way to transact. And
Yep.
yeah, and then, UnoCoin was born. And yeah, and through some of my friends that I met at my meetups, namely
Right.
Satvik and Harish and Abhi, one day we were like, hey, we've tried 100 other things. Let's just like take this stupid little website that Sunny has and brush it off and build it into like a full blown, brokerage where we
Mhm.
can solve this problem. That was kind of like, yeah, how we all began.
Awesome, man. So, I want to go deep into UnoCoin, but before that, I want to go
hmm
deep into meetups in general. So, what have your lessons been with running meetups for like for how many years have you? When was your
Yeah.
first meetup?
Well,
What's the story around your meetups?
I'm pretty sure I started doing them in 2012. It could be as early as 2011. I've lost
Mhm.
count a little bit. But I would attribute so much of at least my career arc and everything that I've had a chance to do with meetups. Well, and I think the reason is because Meetup does something really interesting. It brings together, and it could be Meetup, but I think nowadays people use Luma or whatever. I think maybe the substrate is irrelevant, but what matters is just like physically getting together with like-minded people. I'm a big fan of Zoom calls and podcasting, and like on any given day, I've got like 15 meetings, but nothing replaces like being like what happened yesterday with the meetups, right? With our meetup where we were just like chilling and talking and hanging out and so yeah, so I kind of intuitively understood really long a while back that if I wanted to do something in business, that people would have to be involved. And and I also knew that there's no way that I could know everything, right? Like I have certain skill sets, but I would need people that were far more technical than I. For example, I needed people that were far more Indian than I, because I'm kind of like a white guy in a brown guy's body. Like I was born in Alberta. I mean, I don't sound Indian. I don't have like the Indian in me, like, you know what I mean? Where like Indian people have like a certain like just this grit, this like where they yeah, and then so I luckily, met Satvik and Harish and Abhi through those meetups. And Satvik is the CEO of UnoCoin, but they are kind of like the heart and soul of UnoCoin today. And there's no way that UnoCoin would be around without them. In fact, I think it was like day 7 of our business being launched. We had 4 programmers, and 35 people from the tax department showed up at our front door. Right? Like, what? I was, conveniently on the other side of the world visiting my wife's family in Colombia, like on Christmas or
Yeah.
something. And
Hmm.
I see this shit breaking down on Twitter and, the news. And I'm not going to lie, my immediate reaction was shut it down. Like, this is a stupid little side project. Like, well, we don't need this. Like, let's do something different.
Hmm.
But Satvik was the one that said, Sonny, yeah, you're Canadian, you're gonna go off and do something else, maybe in Bitcoin. But he was like, but if I give up on Bitcoin today, my whole country will lose out on it, and I'm not gonna let
Okay.
that happen. We're not doing anything wrong, and so we're gonna fight this. And it
That's
really
very
just
noble.
Oh yeah, like balls of steel, that type of
Hmm.
category. Yeah, man, and that wasn't the first time, or the last that Satvik and Harish took such a strong stand. And it was funny because we launched. So you're asking about the meetups, right? So I have a couple of like formula type of things that I think about. One is consistency. So I feel like just doing meetups, whether it's once a week or once a month or bi-weekly or whatever, it's like just doing it like
Hmm.
regularly is part of the process. And what
Right.
what I've seen happen now in Bangalore in 2013, in Toronto where we did it again in 2016, and now we're doing it again, which is that it always starts with 3, 4, 5 people at a
Hmm.
bar, at a coffee shop. But if you do them consistently over and over and over again, the critical mass starts to form. And,
Right.
and like you saw, we've only done this, 2 or 3 months, and already we've got 30, 35 people showing up, and
Hmm.
everybody's like wide-eyed and excited and
Hmm.
just like passionate. And so and eventually, if you just keep doing them, you get to
Right.
the point where it's like too many people to fit in a coffee shop or a bar, and you need to like actually, do it at some massive hotel or whatever. And I
That's the
think,
dream.
yeah, and I think that's exactly where this is all going again. And
Right.
so when we were doing this back in Bangalore, again, after a year and a half, that's about how long it takes. We had this massive event that we threw at the Sheraton. We called it the Global Bitcoin Conference.com. I even had the domain. And we, were so ballsy. We're just like, we'll call it the Global Bitcoin Conference. We do this event and we launched UnoCoin at that event.
Mm.
And I'll never forget, right at the beginning of the event, like we're just setting up, making sure everyone's like, eating, and how Indian people are, right? Like eating is like the main thing, right? You got to make sure everyone's eating samosas and they're happy. And I get a tap on my shoulder and someone's like, Sonny, there's a gentleman here from the RBI who wants to speak with you. And
Mm.
I was like, okay, sure. I walk over and this gentleman's essentially like, look, he's like, are you one of the organizers? I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, look, if anyone even mentions that I'm here in this room, like while you guys are on stage, I will simply stand up and leave.
Mm.
Like, he's like, understood? I was like, yes, sir. Like, sure, enjoy the samosa, I guess. Like, what else can you say? And that was really kind of the first interaction I think we had. 2 weeks later, um, the RBI issues their first notice on their website saying, hey, buyer beware, Bitcoin and crypto or whatever. It's like volatile. We have concerns around security. Um, and yeah, just watch out. And then that same notice kind of resurfaced on their website a couple
Mhm.
times, as every time Bitcoin would pipe up, they would put out the notice again, and all that eventually led to, the crazy thing that happened in 2018.
What happened in 2018?
Mm. In 2018, they issued a notice on their website saying the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, the central
Mhm.
bank. And I think this is an interesting story because, Bitcoin is trying to reinvent money. And so I think, the central bank taking notice is like a kind of an important part of this whole Bitcoin story. And a lot of people don't know UnoCoin story because the when we finally won the court case, I'm kind of jumping around right now, but it was
That's
like a
okay.
week before COVID. And
Mhm.
so COVID really just buried the entire story,
Right.
obviously. But yeah, the story goes, I mean, essentially, it's pretty uneventful. They just put a notice on their website saying, look, all the banks are no longer to serve crypto exchanges.
Mhm.
Obviously devastating, for our company. We had, I think, 130 or 150 employees at the time. and then all of a sudden overnight we didn't have banking, right?
Mm.
So that was like a really, really tough time in our journey. And once again, my, not gonna lie, initial reaction was, okay, that was a good run.
Right.
Pack up shop, next
Back it up.
project.
Right.
But not Satvik, not
Not
Harish. They were
Satvik.
like,
Harish.
again, we were not doing anything wrong. This
Hmm.
is the future, and so we're gonna hold, steadfast, and we're gonna fight. We're gonna, dig our heels in and fight. And I kind of missed this part of it, but like at that event that I did in December 2013, front row sitting there was a gentleman by the name of Surreal Desai, who is the son of Nishit Desai, who is, in my view, the best techno legal like lawyer in India, like as in bar none. Like you ask me who's number two, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah.
He is, I don't want to use the word God, but godlike. Nishin Pai is crazy, like as
Right.
in PayPal, I think is like they used to work with them, the
Mm.
Google, and I think most of the foreign investment that happened in India happened through Mauritius. That entire thing was uncovered through their firm. They are essentially this firm of about a couple hundred lawyers that all became engineers first.
Mm.
So like the beasts, yeah.
A lot of
Uh,
studying, a lot of school years.
and so at that first event, I had that kind of RBI, story that I shared.
Right.
But at the end of the event, I ended up meeting who's now one of my closest friends, this guy named Surreal Desai. And I was living in Bombay at the time. And so Surreal and I happened to be on the same plane. We sat beside each other. And by the time we landed in Bombay from coming out from Bangalore, he was like, Sonny, you need to meet my father. And so the next day we were in Nishit's office, and, Satvik and Harish all came up to Bombay, and this like older gentleman, with white hair was schooling us on Bitcoin, and he was a lawyer. We're thinking like, how does this guy know so much? And anyways, I tell his story mainly because if it wasn't for them, then they're shareholders in UnoCoin. They're our lawyers. They were the ones, along with my two co-founders, Satvik and Harish, that said, yeah, we're going to take this right to the top. So
Hmm.
it started up in the high court, made its way to the Supreme Court, and then a 2-year long, super, super, like crazy ups and downs. I'm sure one day we will release a Netflix / Bollywood,
Nice.
10-part, maybe when we're super old and gray.
Right.
But it was a crazy, crazy time. Yeah, but we won. So in 2020, all 3 judges ruled in our favor. I'm kind of like TLDRing a lot of this, but
Yeah.
in the kind of final stages of like the 2-year like battle, the 3 judges were like, okay, you guys are essentially fighting this based on human rights, right? You're saying
Hmm.
that there was a violation of human rights, but you guys are all companies, like, and you're like organizations of companies. And so like, where's the actual human whose rights were violated? And it was my co-founder, Harish, who is our CFO and, one of the main co-founders. He was put on trial, and it was his story and the UnoCoin kind of story that was put on under the spotlight. And long story short, all 3 judges deemed that, look, like these guys aren't breaking the rules. They're
Hmm.
in fact going beyond, what they even need to do to mitigate risk. And as a result, yeah, they essentially made a ruling against the RBI, which, from my research, I think might have been the second time in history that the Indian Supreme Court overruled the RBI. And so, unprecedented. I think it's a story about courage and
Hmm.
innovation, and also it's a story about India where China had a very different kind of take, right? In China, things, when the government said no, it was no, like it was done, like it was stamped out of existence. In India, yes, there was kind of a harsh response, but whether it's due to the judicial system or I mean, whatever you want to attribute it to, um, India came out the other side in a different way, right? Like justice prevailed. Was it noisy? Was it, difficult? Was it challenging? Did it almost kill us? Yes, but we won. And so justice exists in India. And I think you need that
Nice.
in order for, for like entrepreneurs to succeed.
Right. So if you had to build UnoCoin again today, what is one thing that you would do differently?
I would build it like Beaver Bitcoin.
Uh,
It's probably not too far,
shout out to Aubrey.
right? I think I've told Aubrey that as well.
Right.
But yeah, I really like what Beaver Bitcoin is doing. I think the world of what you guys are doing. Actually, I think it's very, very interesting. Um, I, yeah, like if I had to look back at all the products we've launched at UnoCoin and all the noise that we create, I would say the thing I'm most proud of is the SIP. We call it Systematic Investment Plan, which is really just dollar cost averaging
Mm-hmm.
into Bitcoin. So I think
Yeah.
that there's something
SIP is
really,
like SIP is as widely used in India as DCA
yeah,
in North America, right? Like
yeah.
everyone's now familiar. I mean, even when you talk to anyone nowadays in India, they're all like, "Oh yeah, I've got my SIP on," and what they mean is that they're buying some kind of mutual fund.
Yes, but and I might be wrong, but
Right.
we claim that we were the first ever to launch a DCA Bitcoin product in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but I'd be
Right.
happy to be proven wrong. So
Yeah.
bring receipts, but I think we might be. And it was like 2016 we launched that product. And
Right.
when we look back at the data and we look at like, how did those people do? Well, guess what? Almost all of them have done really well, right? The people who
Mm-hmm.
just bought and didn't sell.
Right.
And then the other part about UnoCoin, and we initially, obviously, our mission even is bring Bitcoin to billions. But there were many times in between where our allegiance to Bitcoin almost killed us because, when we had Bitcoin, great. But then, some random new company just launched yesterday and they have 10 coins.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to go to Walmart? Or are you going to go to the place that just sells like the one thing, right? So that mentality, was a big challenge. And you could argue that perhaps Bitcoin has hit escape velocity. It's like the network effects are so big now that a company like Beaver Bitcoin can be successful. But we were kind of like brought into the crypto game almost kicking and screaming because our customers were like, "You don't have Doge? Like, screw you! Like, who you think you're smarter than Elon Musk?" Type of thing. Yeah. So I don't know. I think yeah. So I don't know. I think something like a DCA self custody. I'm not lying. Is I think is like the type of company that I really look up to.
Mm-hmm. So what's the secret around running these meetups? Like if someone's listening and they want to start their own Bitcoin or meetups wherever they live or close to where they live, what would your advice be?
I mean, it's as simple as I don't know if all the cool kids are using meetup.com anymore. I almost feel like there's been a bit of an exodus to Luma or something, or maybe not. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I still love Meetup. I still think it works, but meetup.com, you just
Meetup.com.
go there. I think they give you three free groups that you can start and you just create a group. And
So is that what you do for the Toronto meetups?
yeah, and the group I've had it for a long time. That's why
Right.
there's like, 4 or 5 thousand people in them or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but you don't need to have that many people, and you don't need to just start a meetup about Bitcoin. You can start it about anything, right? AI,
Mm-hmm.
robotics, whatever you're interested in. And there's something special, right? Like you're about just again hanging out and being around people that are like-minded, that are passionate about the same thing you are. Um, it's like what is it? It's like 1 + 1 = like infinity type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
where you're just like vibing and I think it's really easy to kind of get stuck behind your computer and just feel like, oh, I can do everything myself. But
Right.
when you get out there and you connect with community, like I said, oh, this guy could be your customer, or that guy could be your investor, oh, this guy is going to be your co-founder, and that, like, it's just everything just comes together and
Right.
effortlessly. And so meetups, the secret is just start, I guess, be consistent, obviously, make people feel comfortable, but really kind of try and pull together those troops, right? And eventually they take a life of their own where it's not
Mm.
just you and your wife staring at each other or whatever. It's like, wow, like you feel like you're almost like at war, I don't know, that was our vibe in Bangalore. It was like, yeah, we were at Leela Palace and having coffee and sipping, but like we'd be like, okay, our buddy is going to fly to New York tomorrow and go pick up 3 Avalons and bring them back so we can get our mining operation going.
Mm-hmm.
We probably lost most of our money in that mining operation, but we learn, right? And then, okay, try
Right.
something else. Okay, let's do conferences. Why? I don't know. Sounds like a good idea. Let's do a
Mm-hmm.
conference. Let's invite every, entrepreneur in India to that conference and every media personnel. And let's not hide from governments. Let's also invite them. And, and we know this thing is going to be the future. So we're not going to be discreet about it. And I think all of that, again, I shared several times where I don't think UnoCoin would be around if it was just like me being a solo founder.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think intelligence is like important, but my big takeaway has been that, like, if there's one thing that's in more short supply than Bitcoin, it's courage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so when you are doing these meetups and you're meeting people and networking and, tinkering with ideas and looking for your co-founder, I would, obviously find somebody that's smart, because if they're not smart, good luck. But also look for people that are courageous. Yeah. And it's hard to detect that, up
Mm-hmm.
front, and some of it's just luck, but so if I could go back in time, I would probably not do things much differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of the fact that I took that leap. I left my cushy job in robotics of 8 years and took, the role. My first role was working for a Google venture-backed Bitcoin exchange that came out of Y Combinator. That
Right.
company failed miserably, and then I was forced to kind of come back to UnoCoin and, build
Mm-hmm.
with the guys, but super difficult, super challenging. I would probably have way more Bitcoin today if I didn't choose this like path of the Bitcoin road, right? Because startups are obviously not easy, and
Bitcoin is the hurdle rate, right? So
yeah, Bitcoin's
anything
a
you invest your time or money in outside of Bitcoin has to beat Bitcoin.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I mean, a part of me does kind of think, hey, I should have just gotten like a really fancy job and slammed, paychecks into Bitcoin and
Stay humble and stack
stay
sats.
humble and stack. And for 99% of people listening to this,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the play. Just keep doing what you're good at and just spend less money and just
Right.
slam it into Bitcoin, use Beaver Bitcoin. Um, but for some of us, we can't sleep at night unless we're
Mm-hmm.
building, unless we're creating, unless we're, doing meetups and building businesses and
Mm-hmm.
building infrastructure so that people in India can buy Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all that kind of stuff. And if you feel compelled that you're among those people, then, I would say tread carefully and be careful what you wish for, because that saying, what is it? Eat glass. It's like eating glass and staring into the abyss. Like that is essentially what entrepreneurship feels like every day.
I think
So if you're not ready for that, I don't know. Yeah, be prepared, because it's not easy is what I'm trying to say. It's very, very challenging, but it's also very rewarding. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect segue to Bitcoin equities. So obviously, Bitcoin equities is a massive thing now. If you are paying attention to Bitcoin, then obviously you've heard of MicroStrategy and um, Sunny. You ran a company called Matador in Canada, Matador Technologies, which is like a MicroStrategy copycat. How did that happen? What did you learn from it? What do you generally feel about Bitcoin equities versus just owning Bitcoin?
I mean, maybe I'll just take that in reverse. So first thing I'd
Hmm.
say is like, it doesn't compare. Like, you need to buy Bitcoin and you need to self custody.
Right.
So all roads, I guess, lead back to Beaver. But I definitely would say, yeah, you need to first hold Bitcoin. The way I see this is it's a bit like it's like a levered play on Bitcoin, right? It's like
Hmm.
it's a way of giving people that simply are never gonna engage with Bitcoin exchanges because they're afraid of FTX or whatever. It's a way of giving them exposure. It's a way of giving institutions and high net worth people exposure to Bitcoin, right? I don't think there's anything inherently wrong. I think it's actually amazing what Michael Saylor is doing. I think he has, you could argue, become the face of Bitcoin, right, through his work at strategy. And then, yeah, so how did I get involved? I mean, short answer, there's a guy named Trevor Kavirko. I think if you're from Toronto, at least, or in the crypto space, I'm sure you've heard of him. He's, a former NHL hockey player, which a lot of people don't know, and he doesn't love to tell that part of the story, but I think that's like super cool. And Trevor is the founder of Matador, him along with Donato, and it was at the Bitcoin conference where Trump made the big announcement in Vegas. It was literally, I think, that day, maybe the next day, where Trevor and Devin and the guys behind the company approached me, and I'd been working with Trevor for almost maybe a year and a half prior to that on.
So this is Trump at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville in
Yeah,
2024? Right.
yeah. We were all there together, and
Okay.
long story short, Matador was, it was a private company. They were doing, they were tokenizing gold and building some tech out. And
Hmm.
after a conversation with David Bailey, who's the guy who, by the way, orange pilled Trump, and hosts, the biggest Bitcoin events in the world, 20,000, 25,000 people. He's the guy that owns Bitcoin Magazine, which in my view is maybe the only real Bitcoin magazine out there so far. And so, so in a conversation with Bailey, and the guys behind Matador, they decided that that they wanted to, take this private company public, and so at the time it was still, all that was happening, and so they were like, Sonny, we need somebody that can come on board and, kind of be the face for it and help us, with podcasting and just business development and just essentially being the president, going to all these investor meetings and, dealing with the TSXV. I mean, it was quite an adventure. I learned a lot from it, and yeah, and so I think, I think it was interesting. It was an interesting year and a half. I I'm personally, like, not gonna lie, I'm just more and more excited about like self custody, dollar cost
Hmm.
averaging, and just like going back to the roots, of Bitcoin, like Casa, like multi-sig, like just this like sovereignty piece is something that is standing out for me more and more as an area where I want to focus more of my personal like attention and time.
Right. So that's a perfect segue to looking ahead to 2026.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you're focusing on this year, and what are you building this year?
So my baby UnoCoin, we just had our 12-year anniversary last
Hmm.
month. So I'm really proud of just the fact that, we made it this far. I
Right.
shared the story about, the RBI, but, soon after we won that, we had competitors, I'll leave them unnamed for now, that went out and raised 300, $400 million at multi-billion dollar valuations. And while it's great for them, it obviously made things very challenging for UnoCoin, right?
Hmm.
In terms of like advertising, marketing, and trying to compete. So yeah, we've been through, a lot, right? First to
Hmm.
market, when things got really, really bad, we stood tall and
Hmm.
and did what we did, and then making it through this like challenging period. And I'm sure you heard, like, WazirX was hacked for 500 million or 400 million
Hmm.
last year, and you had other big exchanges being hacked. You had all the big international exchanges being booted out of India last year, like literally due to non-compliance. And so the fact that UnoCoin is still there and still, just kind of moving forward, chugging along, I think is noteworthy. So yeah, I've got like a strategic angle that I'm working on. I think I'm gonna not talk about that right now, just
Okay.
because, yeah, I want to just like at UnoCoin, we try not to ever talk about stuff that we're doing for the future, and we try and talk
Fair.
about it after it's done.
Right.
So I'll leave that
So you'll have to
for.
come back
Yeah,
to that.
maybe once
Right.
that success is under our belt,
Hmm.
I'll come back and talk about, whether it worked or not. I'm
Awesome.
100% sure it will.
Okay.
And yeah, man, I think and then just like really quickly, I'm also really excited about I've kind of had like a revival of my interest in robotics. I think
Right.
ChatGPT and AI and all this stuff has really made me wonder like where all this is going. And I think
Mm-hmm.
humanoids are super cool. So I'm a director of a public company called Humanoid Global. So that's
Mm-hmm.
taking up some of my time. And then last, I'll just finish on this note. I'm also getting really excited about just helping entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
with business development, driving growth, raising capital. And I started a new company called Raz Rocket with a buddy of mine named Charles, and we're doing some fun stuff there as well. So if you are an
Nice.
entrepreneur in Bitcoin or robotics or whatever, and you need
Mm-hmm.
some help, let us know.
Awesome, man. I mean, it sounds like you're doing so many cool things, and I'm super excited to keep hearing about them as we hang out at these meetups. Now, Sonny, we have reached the favorite part, like my favorite part of the show, which is called the rapid fire round. So, in this round, I'm just going to ask you short questions, and what we want from you is your short, one word, couple of words, one sentence max, just a very, quick, impulsive response. Um, so are you ready to go? Are
I'm
you
ready.
ready for
I'm
the
ready.
rapid
I'm
fire
ready.
round?
Yeah, I'm
Awesome,
ready.
man. Okay, let's go. All right. Number one, what's the most exciting use case for AI?
Vibe coding.
Okay. If you had to orange pill a smart skeptic in one sentence, what would you say?
If I don't, I could probably come up with something better, but the thing that comes to mind is future of money.
Okay. What's one thing Bitcoiners take way too seriously? Oh, hello. What's one thing Bitcoiners take way too seriously?
Themselves.
All right. What's something Bitcoin has given you that you did not expect?
Children. No, that's kind of true. So I never
Okay.
wanted to have kids because I thought the world was a dark place, and it was actually, I'm not kidding, discovering Bitcoin that like made me go, oh my god, like this future is going to be beautiful.
So
And
Bitcoin,
Bitcoin gave me kids.
Bitcoin gave you hope for a better world.
There you go. There, my
I
wife gave
love
me the
that.
kids. Yeah.
I love that, man. That's so nice. Okay. Are we currently in an AI bubble?
Yes.
All right. Sell. Which central bank is the next one to buy Bitcoin?
India. Sorry, maybe not. Yeah, no, don't quote me on that one.
All right.
You just said rapid fire, so that's what came
It
to
is.
mind.
It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
digital gold, and India's the home of. Okay, I
Yeah.
digress. Keep going.
I agree there. India should buy Bitcoin. Will they be next? Who knows? All right. I have the last rapid fire question for you.
I'm here for it.
You get a free billboard anywhere in the world. What does it say?
Why does this come to mind? Make Bitcoin great again. I don't know why, but that's all I can think of.
Bitcoin has always been great and continues to be great.
Yeah, I know.
But that's a hilarious response. I love it.
I guess you can tell what I'm thinking about. Yeah, like it's kind of hard with this whole Venezuela thing. Hey, by the way,
Right.
are you tracking that? That supposedly Maduro has like 600,000 Bitcoin, and the U.S. might be picking that up.
Yeah, we'll
Dude,
have
never a dull moment. Like every day, there's something. Just I love Bitcoin, dude. It's like
yeah.
best ever.
Yeah, I write a weekly. I help Aubrey write a weekly bulletin,
Mhm.
for Beaver, and that's definitely in this week's edition. So, if you
Wow.
receive our bulletin, then watch out for that. Sonny, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the Why Bitcoin Wins podcast. We've loved having you. We've loved hearing from you. Your story is powerful, and I'm excited for everything you're going to be doing in the future.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I love your energy and the great questions. And 2026, buddy. This is our year. Let's go.
Let's go 2026.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right, man.